Welcome to Gestalt IT. I'm Tom Hollingsworth, and today we're talking tech with my friend Girard.
What's going on, Tom? It's a pleasure to be back here. My name is Girard Kavelines, founder of Tech House 570. You can find me at gkavelines on Twitter, Girard Kavelines on LinkedIn, or wherever other books are sold.
Girard, what's exciting to you in tech right now?
What's exciting to me in tech, so a lot of my core areas are networking, security, and virtualization, but security always has a special spot for me. And one of the things I want to talk about, kind of bring more awareness to it, some may know, some may not, is the difference kind of between EDR and XDR. So EDR is endpoint detection and response. They solely focus on managing the endpoints and protecting them from different threats, attack vectors, all kinds of good stuff. XDR is extended detection and response, and what that is, that gives you like a broader single pane of glass, fully covers everything from the network infrastructure side, cloud, email, phishing, endpoints, attacks, threats, all that good stuff. And
sounds like EDR is kind of focused on the clients, kind of like old antivirus used to be. XDR is a little bit more of a holistic approach.
It is. And the funny thing is I'm pretty fortunate because when I was growing up and when I got into this industry, I'm coming from the days of scareware, right? And, everybody brings their computer and these things are flashing and beeping, and why is it doing that? To we've seen how threats have evolved from threat actors, different threat vectors, different approaches and different types of attacks and breaches from, on a global scale and at the infrastructure side. So that's what's always gotten me interested into more of the security side, because the threats are evolving. And the nice part too with XDR is it's constantly digging for granular deep data in order to prevent these newer attacks, newer threats, what are some type of patterns, as well as it gives you a better understanding of how to be more proactive in approach.
Sounds like it's a little bit more complicated than the old days of don't copy that floppy, or disable macros in your Word.
It is, or shut off system restore, and then you won't get a virus. I mean, we're long gone with those days, but it's exciting because especially with OS improvements from not just the client PC side, but obviously from the network infrastructure and now cloud security. We're seeing a lot of different approaches to that as well.
So how does XDR help me with things like cloud security? Does it give me a holistic view of what might be going on in a public cloud, or is there a different solution for that?
So it does. What it does is, like I said, it's more of a single pane of glass approach. I know Cisco SecureX launched a few years ago or so, and they wanted to have a way to kind of integrate every single piece of Cisco, both from a hardware perspective and a software perspective. So now you have XDR solutions, you have Cisco Secure, from the ASA side, all of these pieces are coming together to be able to give you one general overview so you can view it from the cloud perspective and where these different threats are coming from.
Well, I know that we've always been trying to get a hold of this data. I mean, these devices have had logs and telemetry and all kinds of things. So is XDR, does it replace like a SIEM?
I don't think that it does. I think that XDR, again, it's still, you're always going to need, which I don't want to call it a legacy solution, but you're always going to need, I don't want to call it legacy. I try to stay away from that word because at the end of the day, there's always still a need for it somewhere in some environment, right? Like you might have that 2012 server box, or you might have something that still may have hit their end of life and a client may not realize it. What this does to me is you still leverage that, but XDR gives you more insights as to where the data is pulling from. What if there's a different type of threat attached to it? Where's the focus need to be? How can you remediate that in a faster time?
So is XDR focused just on one vendor solutions, or does it pull multiple different kinds of devices and multiple vendor solutions into one area?
Multiple vendor solutions, no limit, especially as it's growing and as it continues to grow. We've seen it with Fortinet, Juniper, Cisco. CrowdStrike's a big one that I've become familiar with the last 2 years that my company uses, and CrowdStrike pulls everything in. Access points, thin clients, mobile phones, everything. Every piece of technology, no matter what device it is, unless it's Skynet, it pulls everything in, and it gives you that overview. Okay, this is a device, new device just was added. What is this? Why is this? Response time, what's everything that's coming into it? So,
would there be a situation where a solution like XDR would be overwhelmed with the amount of data that we're feeding it? Because I know for a fact when I'm trying to work on this stuff, I get overwhelmed pretty quickly when it's just, mountains of logs that are scrolling past me.
So I feel, coming from different verticals, right? I'm in the legal space, but when I was in healthcare, that was one of the challenges I seen. Like Carbon Black, was another great solution. Took a lot of tweaking, and even with the tweaking, it still needed more tweaking and more tweaking because you're pulling in so much data that it may not be able to ingest it right away. I have yet to see an XDR solution or any XDR solution that can really just pull data in and just kind of get it segregated, organized, figure it out, know what it is. It's almost like, remember that Dragon dictation software? You had to work with it to train it. That's, when someone told me that, and I was like, that makes sense, but you have to work with it. You have to kind of mold it to what you need it to do and to start picking up behavioral patterns and certain clicks and things that it's not going to be self-taught or learned on its own.
So it's almost looking for anomalies based on what it would expect your system to be doing, and when something falls outside of that arena, it says, wait a minute, something's not right here, and you need to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like XDR has a good rate of being accurate? Because I know one of the things that a lot of people tell me about security tools is the false positive rate is enough to them for them to want to turn it off, but yet they don't because they're also worried about a false negative.
I feel that's with anything though, but I feel like it's becoming a lot more so. Let's see, we're in 2023, right? I've been doing this for a while. About 2010, 2012, I noticed a lot of products like Symantec. I love Symantec, but they were notorious for the false positive negative, but that's because, again, when you had freeware software, and we're not even talking from a network perspective, but again, going back down to the low-level client perspective, everything freeware doesn't pull definition updates, wasn't looking for threat signatures, it wasn't doing that, where the paid stuff, the heavy stuff is like, hey, okay, we're going to sit here and match this against our query database and start, okay, this is an actual attack vector, threat vector. False positives were a lot more common. They still exist today, but I think they're becoming a lot more educated. It's becoming a lot more far and few in between. You're going to have false positives, but where you may have had 15 or 20 back then, you may be down to 5 now. This is going to be perfect? No. But I think as it progresses on, it could get to a point where false positives could be going away, but I don't like to say going away. Maybe leaning down to you might have one false positive, if that's even a thing. We're not there yet, but it's always imminent.
So one of the things that a lot of people talk about nowadays when it comes to software development, of course, is AI. Is XDR using AI in some way, or is that kind of on the horizon?
I think that's on the horizon, especially with a lot of, you're seeing ChatGPT, you're seeing AI just leverage in a multitude of ways. So these newer updates, I know through the CrowdStrike platform, is going to start leveraging a lot more AI. Exactly what that fully entails, I'm not sure yet, so that's something you have to stay tuned for.
Yeah, I know that it's always an ever-changing environment because security is constantly responding to new threats, finding ways to detect things that are going on, and of course, as soon as you figure out how to find somebody, the attackers find a way to disappear again.
One of the things I've always loved and will forever love until the day I'm not here anymore about security is that I always loved the fact that you could be on both sides. In order to stop an attacker, you need to know how they think and get in their head, and that's why you always have the white hats and the dark hats and kind of that whole community, but the reason for that is you need to know what you're going up against. And it's become to the point where not just the professionals or the engineers or solutions architects, but we have to be just as proactive as the attackers themselves. We have to stay 3 steps ahead. It's now that the tools that we're leveraging are becoming just as smart, if not smarter, than us, to the point with leveraging AI and starting to integrate that into the newer versions. That's going to give us a distinct advantage over being able to kind of be even more steps ahead in preventing these things.
So is XDR the solution to all of my problems, or is it just one tool in the toolbox?
I think it's one tool in the toolbox, right? I mean, at the end of the day, tools are great, but you also have to have that human instinct, and I think with that instinct comes experience, okay? I would never expect someone, 5 years in to be like, it's a learning curve. It's great to leverage and lean on the tool, but when you marry that with 20, 30 years of experience, it gives you a lot more tools, great, but that never kind of takes away from the human eye, in my opinion.
So we started off the conversation about XDR versus EDR. Is there still a place for EDR?
Well, what I've noticed too is EDR is becoming more married into the solution. EDR used to be a standalone solution. You go into licensing and all that, but it goes back down to, again, what your environment entails and what it needs, right? If you need to manage a few access points, I feel EDR would be good for maybe a smaller mom and pop, but if you're in a big healthcare organization, XDR is going to be the way to go. Healthcare, law firms, anything, manufacturing, where you have a multitude of devices, people are bringing their own devices, tablets, you're going to want to focus on XDR.
So what's one exciting thing you're looking forward to in the future of XDR?
Again, having a tool that can become more, I don't want to say intelligent, but I'm going to say a tool that's going to be more intelligent, that again, can maybe stand in place of that human anatomy. It's not going to replace the mind. It's not going to replace your visual experience, what you bring to the table. But again, if you have something that you can lean on and back, and then you can rely on the tool more and not have to be like, well, my eyes weren't looking at that, how did this slip past me? I think a lot more security and harnessing that is going to be changing the way we do things.
Awesome. Well, Girard, thank you for talking to me a little bit about XDR and EDR today. I learned a lot, and I appreciate your perspective on the topic, and I think it was definitely a good thing for our audience to learn about.
Definitely, and like I said, I'm always available in the community. Gestalt IT, we do a lot of great stuff, so it's always good. You want to learn more about it, check us out.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for tuning in for this Tech Talk with Girard Kavelines. We learned a little bit about XDR today. If you'd like to see more great Tech Talks like this, along with a lot of other great content, please make sure you check out gestaltit.com, where we have a variety of video interviews, written articles, podcasts, and more. We look forward to seeing you there.
See you, everyone.